Imagine walking into a legendary music studio, only to be dismissed and kicked out, not knowing the man you just insulted was its silent savior. Now imagine that studio collapsing into silence, all because of the very ego that tried to humiliate its biggest patron. Stay with me, because you're going to love how this symphony ends. Meet Elias Vance, a self-made tech CEO who rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most discerning business leaders in the city. He wasn't loud about his wealth. He didn't flash it around. Elias believed true power was in silence and strategy, much like the intricate compositions he privately adored. His penthouse office, minimalist yet commanding, showcased his disciplined mind. He quietly backed dozens of ventures, his investments a carefully guarded secret. One of those hidden interests was Echo Legacy Studio, a place steeped in musical history. For decades, its hallowed halls had recorded legends, shaping the very sound of a generation. But time, like an unforgiving metronome, had caught up. Without significant investment, the studio, once a vibrant hub of creativity, was fading, its iconic equipment gathering dust, its future uncertain. The music world held its breath, hoping for a miracle. That miracle arrived quietly, through Elias Vance's private equity group. In a sleek corporate boardroom, Lena Hayes, Elias's lead financial advisor, outlined the terms of a substantial investment into Echo Legacy. Millions flowed into the struggling studio, but on paper, Elias Vance's name was nowhere to be found. His money came through a carefully constructed shell company, ensuring his identity as the studio's true lifeline remained a secret. The studio's co-owner and resident producer was a man named Marcus Thorne. Marcus had an ego as vast as his supposed talent. He strutted around the lavishly decorated control room, dismissing Jamal, the long-suffering studio engineer, with a flick of his hand. Marcus believed appearances were everything, convinced his vision alone had saved Echo Legacy. He was about to learn that true power doesn't always wear a flashy suit. Echo Legacy's studio hummed with a renewed, almost artificial vibrancy. Fresh paint glistened on the walls, and the latest digital mixing boards gleamed under the track lighting. Marcus Thorne, impeccably dressed, strutted through the main recording room, gesturing expansively. "See, Jamal? This is vision. This is what Hunt and my leadership brings to a legacy. Top-tier equipment, a refreshed aesthetic. We're not just a studio, we're an experience." Jamal, the studio engineer, nodded weakly, his gaze lingering on a new, high-end microphone he knew Marcus hadn't personally chosen. Nearby, Maya, an aspiring artist waiting for a consultation, watched Marcus from the lounge. She noticed the way he barely acknowledged Jamal's presence, or how his smile only truly materialized when a flashier, well-known musician walked past. The fruits of unseen labor, paraded as personal triumph. Far from the studio's fabricated grandeur, Elias Vance sat in his private study, the air thick with the scent of aged leather and vinyl. He held a worn album cover, tracing the faded lines of a legendary jazz artist who had once recorded at Echo Legacy. The soft crackle of an old vinyl record filled the room, a melody weaving through the quiet. For Elias, music was more than an investment. It was the soundtrack to his own journey from humble beginnings to the pinnacle of tech innovation. He didn't just want to save a studio. He wanted to preserve the very soul of a place that had birthed countless masterpieces, a place he deeply cherished. This was personal. The next afternoon, Elias found himself walking past the familiar, now polished facade of Echo Legacy Studio. The city street buzzed around him, but his eyes were fixed on the iconic sign, a beacon of musical history. He was dressed simply, a dark, tailored t-shirt and well-fitting jeans, blending seamlessly into the urban crowd. A sudden, almost impulsive urge took hold. He wanted to see it, to feel its renewed pulse, not as its silent benefactor, but as a genuine enthusiast. He decided then and there. He would walk through those doors, a regular music lover, entirely unaware of the discord that awaited him. Inside, the reception area of Echo Legacy was a whirlwind of activity, but beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Jamal approached Marcus, who was loudly discussing marketing strategies on his phone. "Marcus, a quick word. We have a conflict with the main booth schedule later, and the old vocal mic is still giving us feedback. Might need a look before the afternoon session." Marcus waved him off impatiently, barely looking up. "Jamal, don't sweat the small stuff. We have important clients coming. Focus on making sure the lounge looks perfect. Appearances, my friend, are everything. Jamal sighed, a familiar weariness in his eyes as Marcus returned to his call, oblivious to the simmering issues, both technical and human. The glass doors of Echo Legacy Studios slid open, and Elias Vance stepped inside. He paused, taking in the freshly painted walls, the gleaming equipment, the buzz of activity. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a quiet satisfaction in seeing the legacy he had silently saved. He looked like any other curious patron, perhaps a tourist, or a casual musician hoping to peek behind the scenes. His simple attire, chosen for comfort, belied the immense power he held in his hands. He was ready to observe, to appreciate. He was entirely unprepared for the immediate, blatant disrespect he was about to encounter. Elias Vance stepped further into the studio's main lounge, his eyes taking in the vibrant chaos and the gleaming new equipment. He was dressed simply, a dark, well-fitting sweater and comfortable jeans, a stark contrast to the tailored suits and flashy attire Marcus Thorne usually favored. Just as Elias paused to appreciate a vintage microphone display, a shadow fell over him. It was Marcus, his face a carefully constructed mask of professional charm that quickly soured into thinly veiled condescension. "Can I help you, sir? Do you have an appointment? Or are you, perhaps, lost?" Marcus's voice dripped with an insinuation that Elias didn't belong. The young receptionist behind the desk shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. Elias met Marcus's gaze, his own eyes calm, but a flicker of something unreadable passed behind them. Elias remained unfazed. "No appointment, thank you. I was just admiring the upgrades. I'm interested in the facilities, perhaps some recording time." Marcus scoffed, a loud, dismissive sound that echoed slightly in the airy lounge. "Recording time? For what, exactly?" "This isn't a garage band's rehearsal space, sir. Echo Legacy is for serious artists, industry professionals. Our rates start where most other studios end. Maybe you should try a community center down the street. They might have a spare mic for your demos." His tone was patronizing, designed to belittle. Elias's composure held, but his jaw subtly tightened. He was being treated like a novice, an imposter, in the very space he had saved from ruin. The insult was direct, personal, and deeply misguided. Marcus, eager to parade his supposed generosity in the studio's grandeur, gestured towards a glass-walled observation booth. "Tell you what, I'll let you have a taste. Take a look, see how real talent operates." He ushered Elias into the back of the booth, where Maya and her band were in the middle of a powerful take. Leaning into the control room mic, Marcus spoke loudly, making sure his voice carried into the recording space. "Just filtering out the riffraff, Maya. Don't let amateurs distract you from your craft." The band members exchanged awkward glances, clearly uncomfortable with Marcus's public display of cruelty, but Maya focused intently on her music, a subtle furrow in her brow. Elias stood silently, absorbing the public slight, his posture still but his eyes beginning to harden. After the session paused, Marcus pulled Elias into the studio hallway, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, yet still condescending whisper. "Look, I get it, the dream. But sometimes, you gotta be realistic. This industry? It's cutthroat. Maybe you'd be better suited for something less competitive. Event planning, perhaps? Or even managing a local talent show." He patted Elias awkwardly on the shoulder, a gesture meant to be reassuring but felt entirely dismissive. "Stick to what you know." Elias listened, his expression unreadable. But beneath the surface, a quiet fury began to churn. To be judged so superficially, to have his capabilities so casually dismissed, it was an all-too-familiar sting. But this time, it was different. This time, it was personal. Elias moved to a quiet corner, near a water cooler, taking a deep, steadying breath. This wasn't the first time he'd faced such prejudice. He'd encountered it in boardrooms, in venture capital pitches, even in casual social settings, always from those who judged him by the color of his skin, or his unassuming demeanor, rather than his formidable intellect and quiet power. Each time he'd used it as fuel. But this felt different. This wasn't just another casual slight, this was a profound betrayal. To be humiliated in the very studio he had poured millions into, the studio whose legacy he revered and fought to preserve. It was an insult that cut deeper than any before. The quiet man was reaching his limit. Marcus, feeling emboldened and pleased with his mentorship, found Elias near the exit. He clapped his hands together with a final, dismissive flourish. "All right, music enthusiast. Boa. Time to move along. Don't waste my time, or yours. Go find a local community center for your talents. Echo Legacy isn't for everyone." Jamal, the studio engineer, and Maya, the artist, exchanged wide-eyed glances, witnessing the blatant disrespect. That was the final, discordant note. Elias's calm facade finally cracked, replaced by a steely resolve. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and with a slow, deliberate movement, began to dial. "All right, then," Elias said, his voice quiet but carrying an unexpected weight. "If that's how you feel, Marcus, let's handle this another way." Elias Vance stepped out of Echo Legacy Studio, the cool midday air doing little to calm the fire simmering beneath his composed exterior. The patronizing words of Marcus Thorne still echoed, sharp and demeaning. He pulled out his phone, his movements deliberate, his jaw subtly clenched. He wasn't angry in a volatile way. His was a deep, quiet resolve, a righteous indignation that had been tested too many times before. He dialed Lena Hayes, his lead advisor. "Lena," he stated, his voice calm but firm, a steel edge barely perceptible. "I need you to prepare the withdrawal paperwork for Echo Legacy Studio. Every cent. And I need you to bring it to the studio. Now." There was no room for negotiation in his tone, only the unwavering command of a man who had reached his limit. Inside the control room, Marcus Thorne was oblivious, still basking in the glow of his own perceived brilliance. "See, Jamal?" he boasted, gesturing wildly at the mixing board. "It's about instinct. You gotta know who's serious and who's just wasting your time. That guy? Definitely a time waster. Probably thought he could just waltz in and impress us with, what, a polo shirt?" Jamal, hunched over a monitor, offered a non-committal grunt. He'd seen Marcus do this countless times. But then, a subtle movement outside caught his eye. A sleek, black SUV, the kind usually reserved for high-stakes corporate dealings, not a recording studio, was pulling up to the curb. A flicker of unease crossed Jamal's face. Marcus, however, was too busy admiring his reflection in the studio glass to notice anything beyond his own inflated image. Moments later, a second identical black SUV joined the first. The street outside Echo Legacy Studio, usually a blur of city life, seemed to pause. From the lead vehicle stepped Lena Hayes, her posture impeccable, her expression unyielding. Flanking her were two imposing figures, security guards in tailored suits, their presence radiating quiet authority. They moved with a synchronized purpose, their sharp attire and serious demeanor drawing immediate, curious glances from passers-by and the few staff members visible through the studio's large glass doors. This wasn't a casual visit. This was a deliberate, powerful arrival, the physical manifestation of Elias Vance's silent command now set to unfold. Lena Hayes and her team walked through the studio's main entrance, their footsteps resonating with an almost theatrical gravitas. The receptionist, initially starting to ask about appointments, visibly faltered, her words catching in her throat. As they proceeded through the lounge, past startled artists and hushed conversations, a ripple of silence spread. Marcus Thorne, who had been loudly directing a new intern, stopped mid-sentence, an annoyed frown creasing his brow. He looked up, irritated by the interruption, but as his eyes registered the sharp suits, the unwavering gazes, and the sudden, profound quiet that had fallen over his bustling studio, a flicker of confusion, then concern, began to etch itself onto his features. The air grew heavy with anticipation. Lena Hayes' eyes scanned the room, bypassing Marcus Thorne, who was now straightening his tie, preparing for what he assumed would be a deferential introduction. But Lena didn't even glance his way. Her gaze settled on Elias Vance, standing quietly near the back, observing the scene with a calm intensity. She walked directly to him, her stride purposeful, her hand extending in a gesture of profound respect. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice clear and professional, cutting through the stunned silence. "We came as soon as you called. Would you like us to finalize the withdrawal paperwork now, sir?" The staff gasped. Artists exchanged wide-eyed looks. and Marcus Thorne's smug expression slowly, agonizingly, drained of all color. Marcus Thorne's jaw dropped. He stuttered, a pathetic strangled sound escaping his throat. His eyes darted from Lena to Elias, then back to Lena, trying desperately to reconcile the casual figure before him with the powerful name and the devastating question. "Wait, Mr. Vance," he stammered, his voice cracking. Him? You're the investor?" The words hung in the air, heavy with his dawning horror. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with a sickening thud. The man he had dismissed, humiliated, and told to, quote, find a community center, was the very individual who held the studio's entire financial lifeline in his hands. His face, once so arrogant, now blanched, beads of sweat forming on his forehead as his empire began to crumble before his disbelieving eyes. The entire studio held its breath, every eye fixed on the confrontation unfolding between Lena Hayes, the sharp-suited financial advisor, and the stunned Marcus Thorne. But Lena wasn't there for Marcus. She walked straight past his bewildered form, her gaze locked on Elias Vance. "Mr. Vance," she stated, her voice cutting through the silence like a perfectly tuned note. "We came as soon as you called. Would you like us to finalize the withdrawal paperwork now, sir?" The words hung in the air, heavy with a truth that shattered Marcus's reality. He gasped, a pathetic, strangled sound. Elias turned his steady gaze to Marcus, his expression calm but resonant with an undeniable power. "Yes, Marcus," Elias affirmed, his voice clear and firm. "I am the man who has been funding the studio, but after what you just did, humiliating me in my own studio, I see no reason to continue." Marcus's face, already pale, now seemed to drain of all color, his body trembling slightly as Lena Hayes opened her briefcase. The reception counter, usually cluttered with promotional flyers and demo CDs, had been swiftly cleared by Lena's efficient team. Now in its place, Lena Hayes laid out official documents, pages upon pages of agreements, contracts, and financial statements. Each crisp sheet seemed to whisper of millions. Her two security guards subtly adjusted their positions, silent sentinels, adding a layer of undeniable gravity to the scene. Lena gestured to a specific section. "This is the immediate withdrawal clause, Mr. Vance," she stated, her tone purely professional, devoid of emotion. "And these are the preliminary termination notices for all associated vendor contracts and property leases." The words were clinical, decisive, yet they echoed like death knells for Marcus. He watched, wide-eyed, as his entire world was being systematically dismantled right before his eyes, reduced to a stack of papers and Lena's precise instructions to her team. Panic surged through Marcus Thorne. His carefully constructed facade of control crumbled, revealing the desperate man beneath. He lunged forward, his hands shaking, a frantic plea escaping his lips. "Mr. Vance, please!" he stammered, his voice cracking with unadulterated fear. "It was a misunderstanding, a terrible mistake. You have to understand, this place needs you. Echo Legacy is my life." He tried to reach out, to grasp Elias's arm, but Elias calmly took a single step back, an invisible barrier of resolve separating them. Marcus's face was a contorted mask of terror and desperation, sweat beading on his forehead. He was begging, not for a second chance for himself, but for the lifeblood of his studio, now revealed to be entirely dependent on the man he had so casually cast aside. Elias remained silent, his expression unyielding, allowing Marcus's pathetic pleas to hang in the air. Elias Vance looked Marcus directly in the eye, his gaze unwavering, cutting through Marcus's frantic desperation. His voice, still calm, now carried the weight of a profound moral judgment. "You should have thought of that before you judged me, Marcus," Elias stated, each word landing with the force of a hammer blow. "Respect is something you show everyone, not just the people you think can afford it." It was a declaration, a principle etched in stone, a direct echo of the very lesson Marcus had failed to learn. Marcus recoiled from the words as if struck, his desperate energy draining away, leaving behind only a hollow dread. The truth, delivered with such quiet authority, was far more devastating than any shout or insult could have been. Elias had not just withdrawn his money, he had delivered a scathing verdict on Marcus's character. Lena Hayes, ever efficient, presented a final page for Elias's signature. It was the definitive act, the point of no return. Elias took the pen offered to him, his hand steady, his movements measured. Without hesitation, without a flicker of doubt, he signed his name. The quiet scratch of the pen against the paper was the loudest sound in the suddenly hushed studio. Marcus watched, paralyzed, his wide, horrified eyes fixed on the signature that was sealing his fate. His empire, built on arrogance and sustained by a silent benefactor he had disrespected, was collapsing right before his eyes, and he was powerless to stop it. The stroke of Elias's pen was the final discordant note in Marcus's symphony of self-destruction. Throughout the lounge, staff members and a few lingering artists watched the unfolding drama, their faces a mixture of shock and dawning comprehension. Jamal, the weary studio engineer, exchanged a look with Maya, the aspiring artist. A quiet understanding passed between them, a subtle nod of vindication. They had seen Marcus's arrogance, felt his dismissive attitude, and now they witnessed his spectacular downfall. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, hushed whispers of disbelief and awe as the true nature of Marcus's reign, and the silent power that had sustained it, became terrifyingly clear. It was a scene of justice, quietly but powerfully served, and the onlookers were its stunned, satisfied witnesses. With the documents signed and the verdict delivered, Elias Vance turned and walked towards the exit, Lena Hayes and the security guards falling in step behind him. Their departure was as calm and purposeful as their arrival, a triumphant procession of quiet resolve. Elias didn't spare a backward glance. Marcus Thorne, a broken man, slumped against the now empty reception counter, frozen in a tableau of utter defeat. His studio, his reputation, his very pride, all lay in ruins. The heavy glass doors of Echo Legacy Studio swung shut behind Elias, sealing Marcus within the tomb of his collapsed ambition. The reverberations of that afternoon echoed far beyond the studio's walls. Within days, the story of Marcus Thorne's arrogance and Elias Vance's devastating rebuttal wasn't just studio gossip. It was a digital wildfire. Staff members, fed up with years of Marcus's condescension, leaked details to local music blogs and social media. Screenshots of the exchange, albeit paraphrased, went viral. Online comments exploded, a torrent of outrage condemning Marcus's prejudice and celebrating the mysterious Mr. Vance who had silently delivered justice. The court of public opinion had convened, and its verdict was swift and merciless. Echo Legacy Studio was now synonymous with disrespect and bigotry. A week later, the initial shock had faded, replaced by a cold, hard reality. Marcus Thorne sat in his administrative office, a once opulent space, now feeling claustrophobic. His phone, usually a lifeline to his important contacts, now rang incessantly with grim tidings. Frantic emails piled up, canceled equipment leases, revoked service contracts, suppliers demanding immediate payment or threatening withdrawal. A new, nervous studio manager, hired just weeks before, stood before him, clutching a tablet. "Mr. Thorne," he stammered, "the proprietary mixing software provider, they've pulled out. Entirely. Said they can't be associated with unethical practices." Marcus clutched his head, the weight of the studio's collapse settling in. The money Elias Vance had injected was gone, and with it, the studio's very foundation. 2 weeks turned the once thriving Echo Legacy into a hollow shell. The recording booths that once pulsed with creativity now stood deserted, silent as tombs. Mixing rooms, where countless hits were forged, gathered dust on their state-of-the-art equipment. Marcus, a ghost in his own failing empire, wandered the empty halls, the silence a deafening testament to his hubris. The vibrant energy that had returned to the studio with Elias's investment had evaporated, leaving behind a stale, melancholic air. In a quiet corner, Jamal, the long-suffering engineer, packed his personal belongings into a worn cardboard box. He glanced around the desolate space one last time, a look of quiet resolve on his face. He was moving on, leaving the ruins of Marcus's arrogance behind. The ripple effect of the incident spread through the local music scene like a discordant note. Artists, fearing association with the now-tainted Echo Legacy, actively boycotted the studio. Social media campaigns declared, "No talent for Thorne." Promising new acts and established veterans alike steered clear, unwilling to risk their own reputations. Meanwhile, Maya, the aspiring artist Marcus had so readily dismissed, found new hope. Weeks later, she was seen beaming in a bustling, smaller studio across town, collaborating with a new, genuinely supportive producer. The atmosphere was vibrant, inclusive, and devoid of the pretense that had suffocated Echo Legacy. Her talent, once ignored, was now flourishing in a respectful environment. The final nail in Echo Legacy's coffin arrived 2 months after Elias Vance's departure. A stark for lease sign, emblazoned with the logo of a commercial real estate firm, was hammered into the ground outside the studio's grand entrance. The once proud brass plaque announcing Echo Legacy Studio was gone, replaced by peeling paint and faded glory. From across the street, Marcus Thorne watched, a solitary figure shrouded in defeat. His designer suit hung loose on his now gaunt frame. The studio, his legacy, his identity, was officially closed. The empire he had so arrogantly claimed was gone, reduced to a vacant building, a monument to his own undoing. Marcus Thorne's personal office, once a shrine to his inflated ego, was now stripped bare. Boxes sat scattered on the floor, the last remnants of a life built on false pretenses. He slumped in a single empty chair, surrounded by the ghosts of his ambition. His business was gone, his reputation in tatters, his pride shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. The man who had once swaggered through the music industry, judging others by their appearance and dismissing talent with a wave of his hand, was utterly broken. He had lost everything, not just the studio, but the respect, dignity, and future he believed he was owed. A few months after the Echo Legacy debacle, Elias Vance sat in his penthouse office, the city lights a distant hum below. He wasn't one to dwell on past battles, only lessons learned. His tablet glowed with new investment proposals, a constant stream of opportunities flowing through his empire. Lena Hayes, his lead advisor, entered, her usual composed efficiency evident in every step. She placed a new file on his desk, its covers simple, yet intriguing. "Mr. Vance," she began, "I believe I've found something that aligns with your criteria for ethical and community-focused ventures. It's a smaller operation, Harmony Sound." Elias nodded, a subtle shift in his expression. He sought not just profit, but purpose, and a place where respect wasn't a luxury, but a foundation. Elias Vance decided to see Harmony Sound for himself. Dressed in his usual unpretentious attire, he stepped into a space that immediately felt different from the cold, superficial grandeur of Echo Legacy. Harmony Sound was vibrant, a kaleidoscope of musical energy. Local artists, diverse in age and background, moved freely, their laughter echoing alongside the hum of creative activity. At its heart was Ava, the studio owner, a woman whose warmth radiated through every interaction. She greeted a young rapper with the same genuine enthusiasm she offered a seasoned jazz vocalist, listening intently, offering encouragement, never judging a melody by its artist's cover. Elias observed, a quiet contentment settling over him. This was the harmony he sought. Later that day, Elias found Ava in her small, cozy office, surrounded by stacks of sheet music and a well-loved acoustic guitar. He introduced himself, not as a customer, but as Elias Vance. Ava's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. "I've been observing your studio, Ava," Elias stated, his voice calm but resonant. "The talent here is undeniable, but more importantly, the atmosphere you've cultivated, the respect, the inclusivity, that's what truly stands out. It's rare, and it's invaluable." He then offered a significant investment, enough to transform Harmony Sound. "My decision," he clarified, "is based entirely on your commitment to fostering genuine respect and a welcoming space for all artists. That, Ava, is the sound of true legacy." Ava, momentarily speechless, extended a trembling hand, a joyful smile spreading across her face. Within months, Harmony Sound Studio buzzed with renewed life. Elias Vance's investment, once again delivered through a silent channel, had transformed the space. New, state-of-the-art equipment gleamed in freshly painted booths. More artists flocked to its doors, drawn by its reputation for nurturing talent and, crucially, for its unwavering respect for every individual who walked through them. Ava, beaming, now managed a thriving, inclusive hub, a testament to what happens when talent meets support, not judgment. A small, unassuming plaque near the entrance read, "To our silent partner, for the music and the humanity." Harmony Sound flourished, proving that a studio built on integrity could create a symphony of success. The fates of the two studios now stood in stark contrast, a powerful visual symphony of consequence. On one side, Echo Legacy, once a beacon of musical history, now stood desolate and abandoned, its grand entrance boarded up, a monument to arrogance and poor judgment. On the other, Harmony Sound, vibrant and bustling, a testament to the power of inclusivity and genuine talent. The message was clear, etched into the very fabric of their existence. Prejudice has a cost, and sometimes that cost is everything. Elias Vance didn't just teach Marcus Thorne a personal lesson that day. He taught the entire community one. His quiet stand against arrogance and prejudice resonated far beyond the walls of Echo Legacy. It was a reminder that disrespect, no matter how subtle, creates a ripple effect, eroding trust and ultimately destroying the very foundations it pretends to build upon. But on the flip side, the power of respect, freely given, universally applied, can build legacies that truly sing. So remember, never judge a melody by its opening note. Never dismiss a musician by their clothes. Because true talent, true worth, and true potential often wear the most unassuming disguises. The person you look down on today, the voice you silence, the dream you scoff at, might just be the very maestro destined to compose the next chart-topping symphony. Or, perhaps, the silent patron signing your studio's next lifeline. Respect isn't just a courtesy, it's the bedrock of all lasting success and meaningful connection. It's what allows genuine talent to flourish, what builds vibrant communities, and what truly unlocks potential, not just in others, but within ourselves. It's the key to a harmonious world, a world where every voice is heard, and every dream has a chance to be recorded. If you're enjoying this video, if this story of justice and quiet power resonated with you, then hit that like button. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. I'd love to know how far this message of respect and resilience reaches. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And make sure to subscribe for more stories where justice comes full circle, where the silent voices find their stage, and where true worth always triumphs over superficial judgment. Join our community as we continue to celebrate authentic narratives of resilience, intelligence, and real-world success.